Hello and welcome back to another episode of Generation Films. Today, we're going deep into the world of Train to Busan. On the surface, Train to Busan is just a damn good zombie movie. The outbreak starts with a chemical leak at a biotech plant and then spreads across South Korea, turning the once thriving nation into a dystopian wonderland. At the center of the story, we follow the trials and tribulations of Suk-woo, a workaholic fund manager and neglectful father. Feeling guilty for his poor parenting, as a birthday present, he decides to take his daughter, Soo-an, on a train trip to Busan to see her mother. Unfortunately, the zombie outbreak comes to light during the course of their journey, and thanks to an infected passenger, it finds its way onto the train. Thus, Suk-woo and his daughter must attempt to survive the hungry horde feasting on the passengers within the railcars and make it to Busan safely. Again, on the surface, we have what seems to be a straightforward zombie thrill ride, but a closer look at Train to Busan's narrative reveals a worthy subtext which explores the ethics of selfishness versus selflessness. When the train ride first begins, we're introduced to what seems to be a fairly cold world. A woman stumbles onto a car in obvious pain, and nobody seems to pay her much regard, though it's possible no one notices her. Nonetheless, it's noteworthy that she doesn't even think to ask for help. She suffers alone in the bathroom, the same place in which the train crew finds a homeless man who is seemingly crazed, as unknown to them, he's probably suffering from PTSD as a result of the zombie outbreak. They of course find this man thanks to Yeon-suk, a railway executive and an overtly obnoxious, unempathetic person.
수고 많으세요. 이상한 사람이 하나 타고 있는 것 같은데.
But here's the thing. Maybe he has a point. Maybe his see something, say something-esque actions here are conducive to enhancing the safety of everyone on board. There is a zombie outbreak going on outside, even if Yeon-suk doesn't know that when he starts complaining. Later in the film, when the outbreak has overrun the train and the passengers are holed up in a single car at the end of it, Yeon-suk begins to exact his selfishness on the other passengers in dictatorial fashion.
근데 내 친구인지 뭔지 감염됐는지 안 됐는지도 모르는데 여기로 들여보내자고?
Yet, again, how wrong is he here? Is locking down the train car such a terrible idea? Our initial impulse is to say that he's not acting morally, but we're not going to speak about what's moral in this video because debates about morality are complicated. What is more moral? Enacting policies which are designed to be nice or which lead to the persistence of society overall? But fine, what we can say is that Yeon-suk is not nice. Jin-hee, the young woman who wants to save her friends, is.
출발 안 할 거야?
안 돼요. 내 친구 나도 안 왔어.
여기 있는 사람들은 살아야 될 거 아니야?
And for her kindness, Jin-hee makes decisions throughout the film that don't serve to promote her survival. That is, her own actions constantly put her in physical danger. We see a similar dynamic when it comes to the conductor. While stopped at Daejeon train station, Yeon-suk implores the conductor to uncouple the engine car from the rest of the train and bound for Busan. The conductor says they can uncouple the car, but seems to agree with his plan to head off towards Korea's second most populous city. But first he wants to go get the passengers who have left the train.
사람들을 데리고 가야죠. 누굴 데리고? 일단 나가 봅시다. 이봐.
The conductor is almost irresponsibly noble. He could get himself killed by running off to find the missing passengers. Indeed, he does eventually get himself killed trying to save Yeon-suk. Perhaps here the filmmaker is speaking to a type of neighborly duty that is characteristic of South Koreans, or even all humans, which leads them to put the well-being of others before themselves in trying times. We can perhaps also posit the weakness at hand here as tender-heartedness. We see this with Jin-hee's object of affection, Young-guk, as well. He's unable to deliver a fatal blow to his zombified classmates using his baseball bat. He can't muster up the will to hurt his friends, and for it puts himself, Suk-woo, and Sang-hwa in danger. And while the three men survive this encounter, Yeon-guk's reluctance to act does not contribute to their success, at least not in an obvious way. Thus, the movie does not attempt to assert that niceness and compassion best serve to encourage survival, as the characters' compassionate behaviors often lead them to their doom. As a matter of fact, Jin-hee and Young-guk would have a better chance at survival if they kill Yeon-suk, or kick him off the train before he can kill them. And then, of course, Young-guk further invites this end by embracing Jin-hee as she zombifies. He'd do better to abandon her here, obviously, and doing so wouldn't be so callous either. She isn't aware anymore, but Young-guk's softness blinds him to this fact. The selfless versus selfish question extends to Seok-woo and Soo-won's behaviors as well. When the outbreak starts, he whisks his daughter through the train cars, valiantly fighting off the infected passengers. Eventually, he makes it to a safe car and shuts a door on tough guy Sang-hwa and his pregnant wife Song-kyung as they reach him. After he finally opens the door and lets them in, Sang-hwa is understandably angry with Seok-woo for almost getting him killed.
새끼 봐라 이거. 사람이 뛰어오는데 코앞에서 문을 닫아? 돌았냐 이 새끼야?
그거 말 조심해요. 당신만 위험했던 거 아니니까.
Seok-woo explains that not closing the door would have endangered others, though I think he specifically is worried about his daughter. We could call his actions selfish, but they actually help to highlight why selfishness isn't necessarily aligned with morality. What should a parent do in this situation? Try to help as many people survive as possible, even at the expense of his daughter? Or help his daughter, one person, at the expense of everyone else? What is more moral to do? What is a parent's duty? Clearly, he believes first and foremost, it's to protect his daughter.
지금 같은 때는 자기 자신이 제일 우선이야. 알았어?
However, Soo-won herself actually disagrees with him and prefers he care about all people, not just himself and her.
신경 쓰지 마. 그냥 각자 알아서 하는 거야.
아빠는 자기밖에 몰라.
She's only a kid, so we can't really blame her, but she's not fully thinking about the internal struggle that her father is facing here. He loves his daughter more than his own life, and so he'd do anything to save her, even sacrifice other people. Most parents can probably understand this. Most of your parents would let me and everyone I care about die so that you could live. And so at this point, you may say, whoa, American Ben, it seems to me that the issue here is that either way someone dies. Yes, this is the point. There's no great answer, because all answers lead to some negative and some positive outcomes. There has to be sacrifice, not just during zombie invasions either, but throughout life.
네 딸이 좀 더 크면 네가 왜 그렇게 기를 쓰고 사는지 알게 되지 않겠냐? 뭐 희생하고 사는 거지 뭐, 그래?
As a father, Seok-woo can either stay home and spend time with his daughter with less financial means at his disposal, or work like a dog so he can properly support her and thus damage his relationship with her. In life, we all come to realize that morality isn't entirely clear at times, that all of our actions beget various effects, as do Seok-woo's on the train. Of course, eventually Seok-woo comes to be much more selfless and caring towards others. He absolutely loses it when Yeon-suk's actions lead to the death of Sang-hwa.
미친 새끼야. 다 들어올 수 있었잖아.
Why does he have a change of heart? Well, perhaps partly because he witnesses the selfless actions of others like Sang-hwa. Maybe he has a kind nature and those around him help to cultivate and encourage it. Now, here is where I want to pivot. I don't want to suggest that the film intends to leave us believing that selfish and selfless action, if there is such a thing as the latter, are both equally justified or lead to equal but different outcomes. In fact, I think the film does try to say that there is something intangibly more desirable about selflessness. After all, the selfishness that Yeon-suk cultivates on the train leads to the deaths of everyone within his car, as the elderly Jong-gil opens the door holding back the zombies. She seems to do this in response to the passenger's selfishness, as selfishness itself breeds more selfishness. After all, why would one care about people who are so self-interested? Jong-gil has no incentive to help or care about the people around her who care nothing for her, and thus she opts for a short and sweet final moment with her zombified older sister over safety among the callous. Meanwhile, Seok-woo and the others who are excommunicated from Yeon-suk's vestibule foster a culture of selflessness among their group. And because they witness each other's willingness to sacrifice for one another, they begin to care for one another. This doesn't mean that they're all going to survive. Sacrifice is still required. Sang-hwa sacrifices himself for the sake of his wife and future child. The homeless man gives up his life for the others, and eventually Seok-woo sacrifices himself for his daughter. But in sacrificing themselves, they give at least some people in their group the chance to survive, and thus keep hope alive that their nation can persist. But what reason is there to sacrifice? Well, to me, the movie just says that it's a matter of believing that the world is worth saving, and that it can be saved. When the conductor radios Busan, he doesn't receive an answer.
부산역 상황 확인 바랍니다. 이상. 반드시.
Busan could already be wiped off the map for all he knows. He just has to hope. Hope in Busan, and believe that it's worth trying to save what's left of humanity. Seok-woo too has to believe that the world is worth saving for the sake of his daughter, and that Busan is still standing.
부산은 안전할 테니까. 그러니까.
I'll be honest, I don't know if I'm being clear here because I'm kind of reaching in order to explain the movie's philosophy. I don't actually know if in reality Seok-woo's selfless group would have a better chance at survival than Yeon-suk's selfish one. I don't know that there's any good reason for people to sacrifice themselves for one another in such a situation as the one in Train to Busan. According to the movie's rules, there only has to be sacrifice of some sort for people to survive. As Yeon-suk demonstrates, one can sacrifice others for the sake of oneself. However, I certainly want to think that there's something more worthy about self-sacrifice than selfish sacrifice. And my experience with humanity is that people do often act selflessly in dire situations. Some people are selfish and hurt others in order to benefit, but others throw themselves in harm's way to help others for whatever reason, whether they have a good incentive to do so or not. Perhaps, though, the key to vindicating self-sacrifice lies in considering not only outcomes, but also what becomes of the characters amidst the outbreak. And this question hits at the heart of the film. What does the outbreak bring out in people? Well, in a lot of them, it brings out monsters, even before they're bitten.
좀 있으면 저 괴물 새끼는 처음 변하는 거야. 먹고 싶어? 이 새끼들 다 쫓아내야 돼.
Others, however, prove themselves to be surprisingly compassionate in terrible times. Sang-hwa, for instance, reveals himself to be a brave and caring man.
왔어.
이거 아저씨가 만든 거야?
He shows kindness towards Suan despite the turmoil around them, and it bodes well for humanity that people can care for a child who isn't theirs for the pure sake of goodness, among other impulses that make adults be nice to children. And while earlier we mentioned how selfishness breeds more selfishness, well, maybe this type of selfless action on the part of Sang-hwa is what helps Seok-woo to come around. Others care for his child, so how can he not care for others? In the fray, this man, who has not always been the best dad, as he, does evil things like buy his daughter video game systems she already has, proves himself to be a loving father and an overall caring and valiant person. But he dies, you say, so what's the point? He perishes as his daughter screams. Well, the reason I asked you just a minute ago to only consider what becomes of the characters amidst the outbreak is that life is temporary in any case. So to me, dying doesn't indicate a bad ending or failure. But maybe there's some worth in what people experience along the way. Without the harrowing events that occur on the train, does Seok-woo ever learn to appreciate his daughter? Does Suan ever come to realize how heroic her father is and how much she loves him?
계속 같이 있어줄 거죠?
It's on this train that workaholic Seok-woo spends time with his daughter. It's within the rail cars that he makes a true friend in Sang-hwa. Obstacles, pain, despair give life to some of the sweetest things known to man because connection is born through shared struggle. Seok-woo has a good ending. He doesn't die an old man who never learns to value the things around him. He doesn't die an empty suit. On the contrary, Seok-woo finds everything good he ever has on that train, save for maybe Korean barbecue. Now, if I want to view the film in its most optimistic light, I might say that because of Seok-woo's sacrifice and the sacrifice of the others in his group, two people, Song-kyung and Suan, live on and make it to Busan instead of none. And perhaps the selflessness of Seok-woo and the others on the train spreads and leads to an overall selfless society in which people display empathy and patience. The kind of empathy and patience which makes a sniper hesitate to shoot a woman and child as they wander into range of his firearm despite being ordered to do so. But of course, some of you would rightfully point out that the woman and child could have been infected, and thus perhaps it would have been fair to take them down. Maybe the movie falls short in defending its philosophy. Or maybe it just wants you to pick which mindset you feel is right, despite whatever rational pangs may be restraining you from declaring outright that compassion and love are the only worthwhile tools on a train teeming with killer zombies. Personally, I don't know. I kind of feel like I'd probably be calling for everyone to be let in the train car here. But then again, I'd also probably be secretly appreciative of the fact that the callous executive is pushing back on me just a bit. Overall, in desperate times, people can't just fall back on higher powers to get them through the madness in one piece. The proverbial thoughts and prayers won't do.
국민 여러분의 안전에는 이상이 없을 것입니다.
The government can't help everyone, and so in such times, people have to rely on others around them. Have faith in others. People have to depend on each other at such moments. And the choice between selfishness and selflessness just might be the difference between losing one's humanity and maintaining it. Anyways, that is the video. I hope you enjoyed it. This is from an old script, and I didn't even really go back and edit it, so I hope it was still of the quality you've come to expect, if you come to expect high quality at all from us. If you liked the video, please do give it a big thumbs up. Remember to subscribe to this channel and hit that damn notification bell so you don't miss a damn thing. For now, my name is American Ben, and I'll catch you next time. Generation Films, peace.